Hello everyone, this is Brett. Thanks for tuning into a new episode of Eclectic Playlist where I show you some things that have been getting rotation over here. First off, we just got to support the Chameleons on Wednesday night in Mesa at the Nile Underground. An absolute honor to get asked to play with them. And we did a stripped down set. My brother, who has been the guitar player in Audra since the very beginning, was unable to make the show, so Jason and I did a stripped down set, electric guitar, vocals, and drums. It turned out absolutely killer, and the Chameleons were outstanding. Out of the hundreds and hundreds of shows I've seen in my life, top tier. Mark signed my copy of Script to the Bridge. I can't even say enough about how great they were. Full band, and they are on tour, and that tour just started. I think they're doing over 20 dates, so if you see that they're coming to town, I highly recommend grabbing a ticket for that. Outstanding. So I pulled this one out as well, as I've been spinning on this Chameleons high. This is a side project, you could call it, The Sun and the Moon. It was a 1989, kind of a one release, one album from Mark and John of the Chameleons, along with Andy Clegg and Andy Whitaker, formerly of Music of Aborigines. The Sun and the Moon. So if you're dipping your toes into the Chameleons catalog and looking for some additional albums, check this one out. All right, so as usual, I start things off with some new releases. In this case, it's just one, not really a new release, just a repress that arrived. I do have some other new releases that have arrived, but since it's October, Halloween month, we're sticking more in the darker realm here. Okay, not first off, this is the only new one. All right, so this is Just Mustard. So if you watch my best albums of 2022 out so far list, then you'll recognize Heart Under, which is right there where my finger is. Irish post-punk, a little bit shoegaze. Nearest Touchstone, maybe somewhere in the realms of the Cranes. What I remember talking about them in a recent video. Maybe it was last week, maybe it was the week before. But this is a repress of their first album, Wednesday. Heart Under was their second. So just kind of going on the success and the momentum that they're gaining with the new one, they repressed their debut, 2018. I love the photographs in this one because it just... look at that rehearsal room. They look totally burnt out. It looks really cold there, except in our days of those, it was in Arizona where it was excruciatingly hot in a garage with no air conditioner and like 115 degrees out. So it looks like it's the complete opposite there. But I love the photos. This is just on black vinyl. Yeah, it's a great companion to their second album. It just kind of shows their progression. I think the second album, Heart Under, I prefer, but it's not really a competition. There is a male vocal on a couple tracks on this one. In particular, the song Deaf is probably my least favorite on the album. I just find that one to be a bit out of place. Other than that, I highly recommend checking them out. If there's even any copies left, I ordered this directly on Bandcamp. So it came from the band, has an insert with the lyrics, and of course that inner sleeve that I showed you there. So that is Just Mustard. All right, so let's go catalog releases here. So yeah, so Halloween month. So of course I'm gonna pull out some soundtracks, horror soundtracks, goth, post-punk, whatever. I should have a big extravaganza next weekend since it is right before Halloween, but I have a short stack. This week was so heavily Chameleons. Puppet Master soundtrack. I mean, I love this film in that series. This is from the first movie that came out in 1989. Richard Band, is it Richard Band, Charles Band? I always get the names mixed up. Richard Band. There he is, you can kind of see him. Did the movie and the soundtrack. I have a little statue of Blade, the main character, the main puppet that you see there. Richard Band had done this traveling show sometime in the 2000s. I don't remember what year it is, mid 2000s, where he just kind of went on tour and set up a bunch of merch stalls, sold movies and little reproductions of the statues, and then did a presentation where he showed clips of the movies and talked about the making of it. It was so entertaining. Got to meet him, bought a little statue of Blade, which he signed, which I know I've showed in previous videos. I have it on my desk. And the soundtrack for this one, which he composed, is so good. It's so Carnival-esque, Calliope music, kind of that like, you know, carouselish. I know that's not really a word, but we are making it a word today. And this is on white, and you can see that faint black in the middle. I think they're calling it Blade's eyeball color or something. But the vinyl edition came out in 2018 on War God Records. So if you're looking for some Halloween music, check out Puppet Master. It's such a fun soundtrack. All right, so back in 1994, I remember going to the movies with my brother to see The Crow. We loved it so much, we ended up seeing it 3 times, primarily just to hear The Cure's Burn in it, because that song was written for the movie. It was so great hearing it in a theater with those loud speakers, in that scene in the movie where the song is playing. It was just so great. One of the few movies too where the soundtrack, meaning the songs that were written or collected for it, were just as strong as the score. So you know, lots of you probably know the soundtrack, which has The Cure, Burn, and lots of other great stuff on there. But this is the Graham Revell score that came out back in 2021, and this is not only a beautiful score, but it is a beautiful package too. You can see these, like what they refer to as spot varnish, those glossy spots on the covers, and it's also embossed, so the tombstone there is all raised. The Brandon Lee movie, Bruce Lee's son, died in the making of it. But what was missing on the soundtrack was that beautiful song, It Can't Rain All the Time. And I remember buying the CD for this back around that time, and it was super expensive just because we wanted to get that It Can't Rain All the Time, the Jane Siberry song, and that is on this. So it's not a gatefold, but it does have loads of stuff in there. You got the printed inner sleeves, you know, it's on black vinyl, and then it ends up coming with a huge poster of the movie. I'm not going to open it up, but you get the idea. Just a beautiful production. It's a good pressing, and I've listened to this several times because it's such a great mood. So, The Crow. If you didn't know this was out, grab yourself a copy before they're gone. Stellar. All right, next up, this is the Southern Death Cult. So, you know, we've been listening to the Cult's new album here. So I pulled out Southern Death Cult. Now, Southern Death Cult is not just the Cult and they changed their name. It's an entirely different band. It's like Love and Rockets to Bauhaus. So the only thing that came from Southern Death Cult was and formed into the cult was the singer Ian Astbury. So the other 3 guys ended up forming another band, which I'm going to show you in a second. So this is early post-punk, kind of in the goth realm, very tribal-esque drums, kind of just real jagged guitars, kind of funky guitars. The song Moya, so great. That was on this old gothic rock compilation that came out, I don't know, in the late 80s that Mick Mercer had put together. I love the band photo of them. They were on for a very short period of time, just a couple of years. They didn't record an album. This was later put out by Beggar's Banquet, I think it was in 1988, which collected singles and just some live recordings and some BBC sessions, I think. But yeah, check out Moya if you're unfamiliar. So Southern Death Cult. So, you know, Ian Astbury left, formed the Death Cult with Billy Duffy, and then they shortened their name to the Cult, and then, you know, there's history. So the other 3 guys ended up forming Getting the Fear. And this is, if you're on another little spot varnish cover. So this was recently put out by Deus Records last year. Not sure if I showed this in a previous video, but if you're unfamiliar with this name, Getting the Fear, I highly recommend you checking this out. So it's interesting hearing the 2 back to back, because that's exactly what I did. I put on Southern Death Cult and then I put on Getting the Fear, and musically you can just hear the similarities, because it's the same drummer, same bass player, same guitar player, just with different vocals on that. Paul B. Hampshire was the singer of Getting the Fear, and Paul B. Hampshire. But yeah, Aki on drums, you have Buzz on guitar, and Barry Jepson on bass. This is on a cool purple vinyl. And Deus did a great job. There's a booklet which details their story. They were around for a very brief period of time, but this is such a solid collection of songs. You know, there's a couple demos on here that just don't sound like demos. Very post-punk of that era. And just great bass lines that really, and I hate to use that word angular guitar, but really jagged, kind of syncopated, funky guitar. Check out the songs Against the Wind, We Struggle, Swell, Sometimes, all really, really good stuff. So that's Getting the Fear. All right, let's just go, we'll go 2 more here. All right, next up, the Danish band, the Ravenettes. So their sound it's a little bit of almost like a 60s garage sounding, their earlier stuff. And this album is my favorite, 2011, and this is like kind of their goth record. It reminds me, it just makes me think of the Twin Peaks, and there's a couple songs in particular, My Time's Up and maybe it's Summer Moon. It just reminds me of that scene where they're sitting in the living room and they're playing a song in their living room, and Laura Palmer's cousin, and oh my God, Laura Flynn Boyle's character, I'm blanking on it, but they're singing backing vocals, and it just reminds me of that vibe, and I love the picture of them. It's all icy and cold. Front to beginning, this is kind of a perfect album. Forget That You're Young, War in Heaven. Definitely, if you're unfamiliar with the Ravenettes and it's been too long since a new release from them, yes, definitely check out the Ravenettes. All right, let's close this out. So on you know, as I often do on the way to performances, just to kind of get psyched up for the show, you know, I choose some strategic albums just to get that adrenaline pumping. And on the way to our show with the Chameleons in the car, I didn't play the record, of course. Pulled out Merciful Fate's Don't Break the Oath. I may have showed this recently, but it's so great. And Merciful Fate's on tour. I think they're coming to Phoenix next week. The song A Dangerous Meeting, that's the one I needed to play and just have on full blast on my way over there. So great. King Diamond on vocals, Nightmare, killer bass line on that one. Yeah. So anyways, I'll be back next weekend, show you some more stuff. Let me know what you guys are listening to for your Halloween month. And yeah, be sure to subscribe and leave me some comments. See you next time. Goodbye.